Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jen DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl, and contributor Robin Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Thank you, as always, for joining us today for episode 15 of the Women in Vinyl podcast and another tech talk. Robin and I talk about everything from OB to hype stickers, what dot gain and PMS mean, to better help you understand what goes into your print and packaging or the art in your collection. Be sure to stick around to the end to hear about our amazing sponsors and what they have for you, as well as the title track you'll hear in 3, 2, 1.
It's been a little hard to breathe with all these beasts bigger than me. We howl to the full moon's light. I home alone, I wonder why. One night on the moon there was a child. He sang for us and danced along our way. Through the night.
All right, let's talk packaging.
Yeah, packaging. The stuff that holds your records together.
So we talked a little bit about labels before, but let's go over those again.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of different kinds, honestly, and different sizes. So it depends on what you're getting.
Yeah.
Like lathe cut records are different than pressed records. OBS. I mean, if you haven't figured that out by episode 15, like
Where have you been?
there's some homework to be done.
So, I mean, as we have said before, your labels for pressed records aren't stickers. They go into the press. And so you want to make sure that they're set up correctly, and that you have them typically as a CMYK setup versus a PMS setup.
Okay, now for all of us non-designy people, Jen, you're gonna have to expand on that a little bit, because I was like, what did you call me? What's this? You're a CMYK, excuse me very much. So maybe for those everybody, and I mean I will obviously learn something too, because I'm so graphically challenged that I would love for you to expand on it, because this is your background. I mean, and there's maybe some people that are listening that don't know that about you, how gifted you are in the design department.
And how burnt out I got drawing bunnies. Hey, new moms, how about aliens? Cool things like that.
Or spiders, or
Ghosts, monsters.
there we go. Yeah, maybe there's a revolution coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a PMS color is from the Pantone matching system. And so that's the universal kind of color system. So no matter where you are, you can choose a color from Pantone. People are probably familiar with Pantone Color of the Year as well. And so those colors, because they are supposed to be a certain mixture to create the color that you're looking for, if you put a PMS color on a label, the label, once it's baked, especially if that PMS color has a lot of white, it could significantly change the color from what you're expecting. So where it might work well on other things like your jacket, on a label, we try to avoid it, especially if it has a lot of white.
Right.
And then CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is black. And so those colors mix to create what we see in print. So if you actually have like a magnifier, you can look at digitally or offset printed things and see these like rosettes of color that make up what we see as CMYK. So that's typically how you'd want to set up your projects, is with that.
Okay. I mean, and so CMYK, I mean, because I print my labels in house generally, that's what I usually get, because I understand that to be the things that I can refill on my printer. And that's when I learned what CMYK was. And I was like, oh, got it. So that, your little blue tank goes empty. That's your C tank. So
Yeah.
that's
if
how I
you
learned that.
and if you were going to do like a solid black label, like if you were going to do an etching or something, I still typically recommend that people set it up as CMYK, because
Right.
all of those colors are going to create a more rich black than if you just do like a PMS black.
Yeah, we as black t-shirt enthusiasts know that there are shades of black.
For sure.
There's like a blue black, there's a red black, there's like a yellowish black, which kind of is a gray, So, I mean,
Yeah.
very true. It's not just like hitting the black and white printing setting on your printer that makes a black label.
And when I used to work in design, we had to take these color tests where they would give us these little colored like balls in the spectrum of the same like blue to green, and it would be like the shades in between.
Yeah.
And we had to like sit in this little gray box essentially. And we had to put them back in order, in the right order.
Oh, wow.
And
so you're like sorting a gradient?
Yeah.
That sounds like the most tedious job / test. Was it hard? Were you sweating? Was it timed? Like,
thankfully not timed. But yeah,
like you have to do this in 35 seconds. Go. Your entire career depends on it.
Thankfully, I'm really good at that, not colorblind at all. And the gray, like whenever you're not sure, if you take a second to like look at the gray, it sort of like relaxes back out.
Oh, it's
your
like
eyes,
a palette cleanser?
Yeah. An eyeball palette cleanser.
That's the t-shirt for the show. Eyeball palette cleanser.
But yeah, we've sort of talked about your labels before, but like you said, you cut them all out. So maybe talk about how that works for you.
I mean, besides potentially being a poster child for orthopedic surgery from from carpal tunnel syndrome from using scissors. I if they're under a certain quantity, then I'll just print them in house. And I have the luxury of being able to choose like what kind of finish the labels have. So whether that they're like super shiny and glossy, or they're matte, or like something in between. I've done some like really fun effects for some bands too, like with glitter and holographic labels and stuff like that, because I live in sticker realm. So I can find a sticker maker and just be like, hey, let's make something really cool, or die cut or whatever, which like makes a really cool presentation, obviously, because it's not like, it's not like a general kind of label.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time that I've gotten labels made at the same place that I get jackets made is when the client was like really particular about matching the jacket color with the label color. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that in my realm. So I'm gonna make that somebody else's problem. So that was very much like a Pantone conversation. And then like, because I didn't have to bake the labels, we could make sure that they actually like matched, because we just made them into like a sticker. So that was cool. But
so you were able to make them at that company to have an adhesive back?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was super, super helpful, because it was like a really high profile project. And I was like, please don't mess this up. Oh God. Like just have like a really great record, everything's super awesome, and then you just like you lose it on the landing, gymnastic style, because of a label, and you're just like, oh man.
So do you put it on before you cut the side?
Nope, the labels are like the very last thing that I do on a particular record. I mean, sometimes the timing doesn't work out, so it's like I have cut a whole bunch first, and then I get the label art sometimes, because sometimes it's like a particular thing and people want to be creative with their labels and take some extra time. And sometimes there's like stuff that I don't catch too, because there's like a track listing or a spelling mistake, just things like that where, I'm like, well, I don't know how you spell your name, so make sure that this is good, please. I have caught a couple where I'm like, oh, the track listing that you gave me or that I'm cutting is actually different than what's on the label or the jacket. So, I mean, I'm like, if the jackets have already been sent to print, I'm like, well, this is kind of where we are right now. Do you want me to change? Do you want me to change the like cut order? Or, I mean, so.
And you have more flexibility there than we do, because we've had that happen a couple times too. Like a track was left off, or they listed things incorrectly, and that gets caught in QC. So if they didn't catch it in pre-press checks before it went to print, so we're like, hey, maybe now it's an Easter egg. Yay.
I mean, and that's like part of me as like a collector. I'm like, yes.
Right.
And then other times, like if it's mine, I'm like, oh no, bonehead. And it was funny. Like actually, when I was working at the pressing plant in QA, we did the Batman. Was it Batman Forever? No, I can't remember which Batman it was, but it was a Batman soundtrack. Oh, it was Batman and Robin in the 90s. With the good soundtrack. And there was so much text on that label that I didn't notice that they hadn't changed their track numbers to like 1, 2, 3, 4. It was just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Oh no, someone was like copy paste.
And that's exactly what happened. And I think the example labels were fine. And then the first off that I took, I just like didn't clock it because there was so much text.
Right.
And I think I was like in week 4 of working there. So I was still like real fresh, real clean. And there was like 800 copies and they were pissed.
Oh no.
Like the label wasn't pissed, but the boss guys were pissed about it. So that was too bad. But as like a collector, I was like, that's kind of cool though.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. There was a Selena Gomez record, and there was like 2 color variants, and each color had their own label script, like label font.
Yeah.
And there was like one that was like kind of like scripty, and one that was like bold text typewriter font. Mm-hmm. And we put them. The first off that I got was correct, but the press op had grabbed the wrong stack of labels, and so they went to press with like a bunch of like mixed labels, and then they just let them go. And I was like, yeah, that's rad, because there was 50 of them or something,
right? And
they were just like, oh yeah, like one's a script one and one's a text one, but like all the information was correct. But I mean, so I was kind of like, oh, that'll be cool for someone, and I was really stoked that they actually let that go.
Yeah, I think labels are probably the most dangerous place to play around with things like that are so hard to detect when it comes to that. Because unless you're okay with it, Yeah.
I mean, and like sometimes like, well, in pressing land anyway, like it's easy to get like double labels. The only time that I've ever like done a double label is if like the first label didn't go on really well. And the last thing I want to do is like put any kind of adhesive remover or anything on my record. I'm like, oh my God. And yes, I have done it. And I know what horrific results happen because of it. So never going down that path again. But so I've double labeled a couple of my records where I was just like not happy with the way that like one looked or whatever. So, but yeah, it's way easier to happen in pressing land.
Yeah.
Do you have any Sabbath double labels in your collection?
No, I did get a when I ordered that Poe Haunted, it had a double label, but luckily the second label hadn't fully adhered in a weird spot. It was bubbled a little bit that I was able to just like cut it off. So back to normal, because I actually want to listen to it and enjoy it. So
but I'm all about the like spelling mistakes on bootlegs and variants.
Oh yeah. I know. I need to go back through all of those and see what else I can find.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so I think that's and for a lot of people doing lathe cuts, like they just don't do labels too. So, I mean, that's something because they want to signify that they're lathe cuts, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever, less work for me. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's like different sizes of labels, obviously. Like most LP labels are 3.5 inches. Sometimes they're 4 inches, depending on like who your designer is. And then like 45 labels are like for 7-inch 45s are like a 3-inch, obviously with a 1.5-inch cut out in the middle. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how many people are like, when I ask them, I'm like, oh, do you want labels? And they don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's the center thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah, and for pressing, labels can't vary too much, really, because they have to fit in the cup that's in the press.
Yeah.
So I think another thing, we might have talked about this before too, but I know a lot of design people or people who are new to vinyl sometimes freak out if the label isn't facing the same way.
Yeah.
Like I've had people complain that like, oh, well, if I look at it this way, the text is at the top, but then if I flip it over, the text is like 90 degrees or whatever to the side. And I'm like, there is no way to control that.
It's impossible.
No, like we would have to be stickering each one, like because we just put them in the cup and it dispenses them. There's no way to do that. So
yeah,
that kind of perfection is not going to happen.
It's very, very difficult. Even with me, because like I'm hand labeling them. Yeah. But like I turn the record over and then like, so I'm not exactly sure where it wound up. I mean, right. And when you're pressing records, like it's going to move a little bit because you've got like 200 and something pounds of pressure, like moving onto this and like squooshing plastic onto it. So, I mean, it's not going to be directionally north and south all of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard one. That's a very hard one. I always try and get them like perfect when they're on clear records specifically, because it's a little easier. But I mean, spindle holes are kind of weird because they're not like exactly perfect either. Mm-hmm. So the way that the record actually sits might skew the way that you're viewing the label on a clear record. So it might be like real perfect when you look at it from above. But when you look at it offside, you're like, oh, I can see the backside of this label. And I mean, I get a little bit like, oh, can you see it? I'm looking at it from different angles. I'm like, oh, that looks lined up from here and here. Okay, we're good. But I really do like it when it sits in the sleeve nicely. And then you can just like see the perfect label. Looks good.
Yeah. And that takes us to sleeves. What do you sleeve into most commonly?
I have a poly-lined paper sleeve, standard. For some projects, I'll do like a different, like a rice one or something else that's like a little bit more custom, depending on what kind of packaging idea they've come up with. But yeah, generally just a polyline paper sleeve. I try and stay away from straight paper just because it's super scratchy and not as staticky, but still staticky.
Yeah, and I think this is a terminology thing too. To clarify, a lot of people will talk about records and say sleeve when they mean the jacket.
Yeah.
And those are two different things. So the sleeve is what your record goes into that then goes into the jacket.
Much like clothing.
Yeah. It's the underwear for your record.
Your shirt sleeve goes into your jacket. Unless you're in Britain, and then there's pants and underpants. Right. Because pants are underpants.
And jumpers.
Yes. So confusing. we love you, Elsie.
British Bake Off is back.
Yes. Totally.
But yeah, so from a pressing perspective, you can get a regular dust sleeve. Those don't have print on them. But since we're talking about print and packaging specifically, you can get printed inner sleeves or jackets. And so your inner sleeve would be a paper stock. So it would be like same kind of weight as a regular paper dust sleeve, like 60 or 100 pound weight. And then your printed inner jacket is going to be like a 12-point board. So it's going to be a thicker stock, not as flexible. But yeah, both aren't going to have any sort of poly lining. So you do have to consider the record going in and out of those.
And when you guys are pressing, how often is it that people are sleeving off of the press?
We don't sleeve off press at all.
Yeah. So I mean, and we've kind of talked about that with like different people that we've had on, where some plants do put them in sleeves right away and some plants don't. So yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're sleeving, because the records are still hot, that's where you get some of those like really fine, like hair scratches. But I really hate calling them scratches because they're like not a scratch.
Yeah, like superficial.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, my trick is always like, and I don't know if you do this too, but like putting the record at 45 degrees. And like, if you can't visibly see the scratch, like it's not, like chances are it's not going to be audible.
Right.
So like, I mean, just like, you guys, come on.
Right.
It's definitely just like a surface paper, a paper brush.
Right.
Just a little soft kiss from your sleeve on your record, but it doesn't mean it's damaged.
Right. And you can get either of those with or without holes too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, mine all have like a cutout so that you can see them. Yeah, so you can see the labels, which I really like. Are you like, just from the collector's point of view, because I mean, we both collect records and most of the people that listen to this podcast, love you guys, also collect records. Are you buying new sleeves and re-sleeving any of your records? Because I've like started to do that with some of my like super vintagey records where I'm like, this deserves a nicer resting place, so we're just gonna spend some money and rejudge the packaging a little bit.
Yeah, we definitely have some polyline sleeves that we buy.
Yeah.
And we put some records, not all of them, but some of them, yeah, we sleeve them in there. And then because you can always put your inner jacket or sleeve, that if it has print on it, back in with the newly sleeved record. Yeah. But another thing from a collector perspective is like, I don't like when people get printed inner sleeves or jackets and have them side opening versus top loading.
Right.
Please top load them because it's like, otherwise to me, if it's side loading and the art is facing, up and down and the opening is on the side, then when I put that in, once it's not shrink wrapped, granted I use poly bags, but the record can just fall out. Yeah. So if you make them top loading, then it just makes more sense to me.
Yeah, from a containment scenario for sure. Yeah. Just now if we're moving into inserts, like the insert is like generally it's like a one pager in an LP situation, and it's a 12 by 12 printed, and it's got like a front and a back, and sometimes that's where you'll see like lyrics or photos or the thank yous or expanded kind of things like that. I'm sure, Jen, you guys have done multi-page inserts. Sometimes they fold out, and that's like the best thing ever, where you fold it out onto your carpet and or floor and inspect it. Yeah.
I mean, inserts, we do like 11 by 11, 12 by 12, 12 by 24. So yeah, lots of options. Posters, a lot of people do posters. Yeah. Other things, like I had someone recently send us patches to put in there.
Oh yeah, I love a patch. That's the best.
Download cards.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some weird stuff.
Like what?
We did a project for prom night. It was a 80s horror movie soundtrack. And they sent me a box of condoms.
Just a box?
They were custom wrapped condoms. And so those were inserted into that package. So yeah, I mean, getting 1,000 condoms sent to you at work is an interesting thing.
These are for work, I promise. I mean, at least you didn't have to go to the grocery store or the drugstore to buy them.
That's true.
I'll just take all of these things.
Yeah. There was a Less Than Jake record that we did. where they wanted a matchbook. And
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
we put that in the gatefold. There's a label in Savannah called Grave Face. We didn't work with them, but they would put like grave dirt
Oh,
in there.
that's
um,
spooky.
yeah. Air freshener. I think Allman Brothers did an air freshener. So yeah, I mean,
I think
endless possibilities.
yeah, I think that air fresheners like been a thing that a few um labels and bands have done, which is kind of fun. Keychains, like buttons. I mean, and like anything that you're putting inside the jacket, like you kind of always have to worry about the record, like
Yes,
at
beat
the
me
end
to
of the
it.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even a CD, like that was a thing for a while where people were putting the CD in the jacket, like they would have it
Yeah.
made in both formats.
Yeah.
It just, you know, if you're someone that's not selling through that stuff really fast, or you think the end consumer is going to leave it in there, it can
Yeah.
warp your record.
Absolutely. I mean, pressure and time is a thing for all of us, most specifically records. um, now that we've kind of gone through like everything that goes inside, let's talk about the actual jacket. I mean, there are a multitude of different kinds of jackets. I mean, everybody always wants the gatefold. Oh, baby. And I have to break so many hearts and say, sorry, that's not possible in lathe land. I mean, and with some of the limitations with what I can do, because I'm doing such small quantities, like I can't always offer assets in the sizes that I do. So I do 7s, 10s, and 12s. And I mean, you and I both love a 10-inch record because they're rad, but packaging wise, they're completely problematic because not everybody does 10-inch records, and not everybody does 10-inch records a lot. So
yeah, a lot of people have sticker shock when they see.
Yeah.
I mean, when there were more choices and everybody had more time, whenever someone came in for a 10-inch, I would always send them a 12-inch quote too.
Yeah.
Because they would save money to make the full size record. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
But
they're
it's
less
like,
common and expensive.
yeah. And that's the thing. And like maybe that's why there's a lot of 10 inches that get made in lathe land, but because they're like, oh, this is cool. But I'm like, well, I can't do a printed jacket because you have to get 100 of them just from the printer. Like they just won't do it. It's not worth their time to change their entire setup and cutting machine and all that kind of stuff to do less than 100. So
right. And for us, a lot of people that we work with as far as printers, because it's probably worth saying that few pressing plants are able to press in house as far as print goes.
Jackets,
I mean, you would have to have a mega facility to be able to do all of that. But I mean, the minimum is 500.
Yeah.
So even, you know, when we were able to offer 300 pieces, those jackets were much more expensive because of that. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I'm so #blessed, #grateful that the printer that I work with allows me to do like a really like slick jacket with a spine for like a 12-inch jacket, and I do 7-inch jackets too. I mean, it does increase the price of the project, of course.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's the thing. I'm like, there's only one printer in North America that does short run jackets, and they're mine. And I mean, I'm always like, thank you guys so much for enabling me to like do a really slick offering for people, because it is like retail ready when it leaves me. So I mean, people are like, this is a lathe cut record, and I'm like, you bet your boots it is. Like, wow, oh my god. But you know, there's still like a little bit of, yeah, like you said, sticker shock, because you're like, this is what the unit actually costs to do.
Right.
I mean, and they have like a, you know, $1 million printer that's the size of a tractor trailer.
Yes.
So, I mean, they have to keep their lights on and do all the things. So they can't just like give that shit away either. So,
right.
I mean, but that's the thing, like 100 is, you're lucky to find a printer that does 100. I'm super lucky to find a printer that does 3 for me. Bless them. But yeah, I mean, 300, 500, that's kind of like the minimum in like for certain formats, like gatefolds. Like, let's talk about a gatefold. Can you explain a gatefold, Jen?
Yeah, well, so there's the single pocket jacket, which is what, you know, doesn't have any fold out. It's what most records are. And then
Yeah.
your gatefold is where it folds open. So you have two pockets or one pocket that's glued shut, but you have your front and back, and then you have real estate for art, lyrics, whatever in the center as well. And then there are two kinds of jackets. So there's your direct to board jacket, which is where the art is printed directly on the board.
Yeah.
And then you have your tip-on or case-wrapped jackets, and that is very costly, but but they're gorgeous. And that is where the print is put onto paper stock, and then it's wrapped around the board. A common record that a lot of people would have probably is like the Foo Fighters Sonic Highways.
Oh yeah.
That's a good example of a like more recent
Jacket.
case wrap jacket. Yeah, and you can always tell because if you open the gatefold and you look at the top edges, you can see where that fold in is, and then the middle piece is glued on top of that, and it's a completely manual process. So once they print those, like yeah, like it's crazy to see.
As somebody who has a manual job, I'm like, oh my.
Yeah, like the paper runs through, gets the glue put on it. There's a person that then puts the board in, gets folded. Wow. So yeah, and Stoughton in California does that, and also Dorado. Those are the main
we love those
companies
guys
that do those. Yeah.
Yeah. They're both awesome. And I will link them in the show notes so that you guys can check out all of their offerings, because they're Stoughton especially has made some like really cool stuff. So
yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
And there's they're a tight fit pocket because of how they're made. They don't have as much real estate for a bunch of things to go in it.
Right.
So if you were doing especially if you're doing a single pocket tip-on jacket, that is such a tight pocket that you may not want to do like a printed inner sleeve with it at all, because it will be very hard to get in and out.
I mean, and does that change the actual, like as we love to discuss, the weight of the record that you're going to put in there? Because I've noticed there's some jackets that don't accommodate my sweet 2mm or 180 gram record as some other jackets do. Yeah. The thing I can say is that my records are 180 grams because they're cut from a sheet, and they're like, it's all
no ish there.
Yeah, there's no ish. It's all the same. I win. I finally win. Oh man, it feels so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like if somebody's giving you specifics when they're making a project, are you like, oh, you're going to want to do like 140-ish or 160-ish record?
I would definitely suggest different packaging options. Yeah. Because I mean, you can fit it in, but that's why you'll see a lot of people that do 180 gram and then case wrapped jackets. Like they'll ship them in the center where they won't go in the actual pocket because it's such a tight fit. And you have to think like the assembly, which we'll get to, like a human is putting it in there. Yeah. And so that it's just more of a struggle, more time to do. I mean,
and we've all struggled with the sleeve jacket, like refitting dance. Like there's sometimes I'm just like, really, man, just come on. I mean, there's so many times I'm just like, you know what? If I didn't care about you guys so much, I would just put you in without a sleeve. Because I'm sure that's why you came this way. Because I've noticed that with like resleeving some of my like vintage records, like those jackets will not accommodate a sleeve.
Right.
And I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah. And those case wrapped or tip on jackets were popular back in the day. So yeah.
Absolutely. So you're not alone out there. And it's not your deficiency that you can't put it in there. Don't worry. That just means that you need to get a sweet poly bag and a sleeve and just put them together inside one little bag and then put them back on the shelf. And that's fine too.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes if people are really price conscious, and they want a gatefold, if that's too expensive, they could do a wide spine, because if you have a 2LP, immediately you're like gatefold. Yeah. But
totally.
To save money.
And that's the one modification that my printer will allow me to do is a wide spine so that I can do some double LP action.
Yeah. And you can definitely fit more in there.
Yeah. And then, I mean, sometimes you're going to do like a wide spine and then you're going to do like the tiny, like the close fit jackets inside as well, inside a wide spine. So there's multiple angles that you can cross with that.
Yeah. The more you can collaborate with your salesperson, the better. Because all of these things, there's ways to make cool packages with all of these options so that you can get something in your price, something that is in your budget.
Totally. And that you feel good about charging people for.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's all kinds of different like boards and different ways to do stuff too, right? Like there's different finishes and different applications of like paint and color and things. Like sometimes there's like a sticker on a jacket. There's been silkscreen jackets since the beginning of time, which are super awesome. And I mean, some of my people are starting to silkscreen the back of their records, which is cool too. So I'll cut the A side and then they'll screen the B side, which is really rad. So, I mean, the B side obviously becomes uncuttable and unplayable then. That's not reinventing the wheel here, people. But we've looked into that for people, but it's just there's the time that you have to allow it to dry and everything. We just aren't able to do it. Yeah, it's hard. I haven't gone down the silkscreen route myself. I'd love to watch the videos of them on YouTube and stuff, but I'm like, that is just, I would need a whole other building to do all of these things. And I mean, and your jackets are not silkscreened either unless you're doing it, or you hire someone to do it, but they're going through the big giant machines like Robin mentioned. So I think that can also be another misconception. And some of the things that you can do are different coatings you can have. So you can have an aqueous coating, which is like a fast drying water base. Most of the jackets that you see, just like a standard jacket, is that where it's sort of like semi-gloss. Oh, okay. Yep. Standard jacket. Yep. And then there's a matte coating, which I love a matte jacket. Me too. Like I think they just look slick. Totally. And same kind of thing, same kind of a coating, but it just doesn't have any sheen to it. You can do an uncoated reverse board. So what does that mean? That is where that sounds like a gymnastics move. Well, sort of. You flip it inside out. There you go. Out of the roundhouse into the uncoated reverse board. Yeah, and so she nailed it. Dear Simone Biles, we've got your new move. But yeah, that's where instead of printing, because when all the material comes to the printer, it typically has the coated side, which you're printing on, and then the uncoated side. Okay. That is just like the natural kind of hand feel, but they all are bleached already. So if you print it on the uncoated side, it will have like no finish at all on it. Oh. So you're still printing on whiteboard, but it will be totally uncoated. And when you do that, if you're new to designing or making jackets, I always warn people about something called dot gain. Okay. And so the best way to like visualize that is if you were to take like food coloring and drop it on like a paper towel, how it would kind of bleed out. Right. That is what essentially will happen when your ink goes on it. So you have to consider that with like fine text. Oh. Whereas like when you do it on the coated side, like it would be like dropping it on a magazine where it's not going to bleed out. Right. So like in tattoo land where you're like, you want to get this font. Okay, that's cool. But you want to make sure that it's big enough so that it doesn't bleed into, although your letters don't bleed into each other. Exactly. But it has a really nice look. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum is the UV finish, which is almost like a mirror finish. Ooh. It's so shiny. I mean, there's just so many options. I mean, you could print on rainbow board, silver board. We did a project for this band called Darling Machine. Oh. And they did. They Parker likes that Parker really likes that. I apologize to anybody that can hear my dog. He's very excited about something right now.
Oh. But yeah, they printed on a foil board and they got this like robot kind of face embossed on it.
Oh,
So
crazy.
that when you held it up, you could like align your face with the
Robot face?
thing. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
This is how you're going to look in the future.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's very fun.
But yeah, I mean, possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I mean, and at the pressing plant level, because yeah, your choices are limited when you come down to limited runs for sure.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. I do my best. I mean, let's see. So there's like a single gatefold. I've heard of these unicorns, but I've never seen a quad gatefold before. Yeah. Oh, that's not true. I have a 4 tops compilation record that is an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. That is a quad gatefold. And
yeah,
it's a kind of a nightmare to put back together, but
one of the Mastodon records is too.
I have an Alexis on Fire as well. Live at Cops with the laser etched H side.
Yeah. And something interesting if you're doing a triple or quad gatefold too, to keep in mind is that because of the way the jacket has to fold, the inner, like where a gatefold jacket has a bubble spine in the middle that completely goes seamlessly, the triple or quad, because they have to fold in on each other, have an open spine essentially in the inside. So if your design is like super dark, you might want to consider getting an inner print of a like black or single color inside, because otherwise it'll just be like whiteboard in those seams.
See, tips and tricks. I love it. And I mean, and then there's all kinds of other like things that you can do. You can emboss a jacket too, which is pretty cool.
Add like foil to your design. Spot gloss, so only parts are shiny.
And like there's like do you guys do metallic jackets? I know there's a printer, and maybe it's Stoughton, but they do they have a metallic finish, so it was like really shiny portions.
Yeah, you can do like the different boards. Yeah. It gets expensive though for a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then recycled board is interesting.
Chipboard.
I think if people want to go that route, that's cool, but you just have to keep in mind that the inside isn't necessarily going to be like a certain color that you want. It might look like the inside of a cereal box. So
that's where the toys are. That's fine.
Right. Actually, someone needs to do that. Make it look like a cereal box on the outside.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And then like with the cutout thing, and maybe this is dating us, but you used to have to like cut out a thing on the cereal box and like put your name and your address and stuff, and then you would mail it to the cereal company, and then they would send you fun things back.
Yep.
You can't just like scan a QR code back in 1989. Was it a thing?
Yep. Clip the little box top things.
Yes. Send in 6 box tops and then you get the thing. I mean, I loved that. That was back in my day. You have a note about the explosions in the sky jacket, and I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know that I have that one.
I'm pretty sure it's them. It's like it folds out. It like completely folds into like where you can make a house.
What?
Out of it? Yeah. Whoa. I'll find it. It's crazy.
Awesome.
But yeah, I've been sent that several times as like, we want to do something like this.
We'll take your $1 million deposit now. Thank you. Operators are standing by.
Another creative thing, and I did talk a client into doing this. They wanted to print, they wanted to reissue 2 different records that they had put out, but the cost again was just a lot for them to do 2 jackets, all the assembly, everything. Right. So we have this record. It's the band Dust, and one is called Dust and the other's Heart Attack. Yeah. And the on one front side of the gatefold is one of the former album art, and then the other is the back album art. And then on the inside, can put the backs or, redesign something or whatever. And so that was a huge way that I saved money for this guy. And I mean, it turned out being a really cool thing. So
yeah, totally. I mean, and that's the thing, like you get to, use the space where that's everybody's big thing with vinyl, right? Is like that you get to have that tangible experience with the jacket and the insert, and like you don't have to get teeny tiny bifocals to try and read CD print, which
right.
is good, or you don't get any print with streaming,
right?
You don't know anything about that record. So I mean, those are always the things that the posters were my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
You could fold out the poster and put it on your wall. My mom hated that because she's like, put it back in the record. And I was like, no, I love Michael Jackson. But, but yeah, I mean, there was like multi-page inserts with like all of the things.
Yep.
So,
and booklets is another thing.
Big ass booklets.
Yeah.
So we've done all the inside stuff. What about the outside stuff? Because there's some things that can go on the outside of a record and or jacket combination, not only shrink wrap and things, but also like stickers and a thing that Jen loves so much, an Obi strip. Let's talk about Obi strips and how weird they are and what they're for. And why do we care about an Obi strip?
I really do personally love an Obi strip.
I know you love
Like, I know people in manufacturing are like, no, you don't. And I'm like, no, I really do.
No, but actually.
Because it is such a pain for assembly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they are really cool. And they come from Japan. It means to wrap, or like a sash, technically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is how they would essentially put advertising and pricing and everything on the record. Sometimes it'll have something that like hypes up upcoming releases. I've used a lot of those like translate apps to figure out what all my Black Sabbath ones say.
Yes.
But I mean, it's really cool. It's just an added thing, especially if you have like a special release or something. It just adds a little something to it. And I think people can put barcodes on it so that you don't have to worry about that on the jacket. But there are two different types of Obi. There's one that's an Obi wrap and one that's an Obi spine. And your Obi spine literally goes around the spine of the jacket. So it wraps around it from front to back. And for visual, for people, it's like it only goes about 2-3 inches on the front and the back and then wraps around the spine.
Yeah. Kind of like a cuff,
yeah, that's a good way to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those you can do on single pocket or gatefold jackets. And then your Obi wrap is like, it literally wraps around the jacket and has some sort of like adhesive or closure. So it would just be more like an actual band around it. And those are really a pain.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some like, I've heard some discussions about whether you cut them or whether you like try and negotiate them off of the record. Like,
that's what I do. Like shimmying them off.
Shimmy. Yeah. I mean, a glue stick comes in handy sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a really cool way to advertise or like, I mean, I keep my hype stickers. Like I try to peel them off and put them like on the dust sleeve if it's just a regular dust sleeve. But sometimes they rip and you can't keep it. But with the Obi, you can put all of that stuff there, and it.
Yeah, it's a good vehicle for labels to be like, oh, if you like this, check out this required reading or this upcoming something. And you find them a lot of times in box sets. And I've been asked to construct a box set for the first time in history. And
oh, wow.
I just am out of my depth with it. I'm like, oh my God, this is not something that I do personally.
You're like, I'm one woman.
Yeah, seriously. But I'm also like, where will I get a box? Like, where am I going to find a cardboard receptacle to put all of your treasures inside that is going to be like economical for you. Because I'm like, what do I do? Go to Michael's and like go into the craft section and find like something that will work. And then I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Am I supposed to spray paint it? Am I like, I'm like, these are the problems in short run land, you guys. Like I try and make your, champagne wishes and caviar dreams come true, but like, a box set is cool.
I mean,
but
yeah, even for pressing plants, they're a lot. I mean, it is,
you guys have done quite a few, right?
Yes. I mean, I think back to the And Justice for All Metallica box set.
Oh, baby.
And, it was all hands on deck for that. I mean, it's a lot of work, especially when they have as many components as that did. But yeah, I mean, you have
for those people that aren't Metallicers, can you explain what all went into that incredible collectible piece of music history?
God. There was like, there was CDs, DVDs, and so there was like the inside of the box had a place that those went
sunk into.
Yep. So there's like a cutout for those. It had several. There's like, they always do like different records live things, so there was all that in there.
Right.
They usually do like a laminated tour pass, lyric
which
sheet.
Won't get you in anywhere,
right?
Just so you know, as a production person, like those are one of the banes of my existence. Sorry for the tangent, but like people would show up to a show with one of these like gift with purchase laminates and be like,
really?
It's fine, I can come backstage. I'm like, you really can't.
Wow, I mean, good for them for trying, but like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm like,
I bought this at Hot Topic, let me in.
Literally. And I'm just like, you're not allowed, sorry. Like I would take it, and I'm like, how do you feel now? Because now you lost your money in your little collectible, because you're not allowed to come back here with that. No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, I mean, just all kinds of stuff they put in those. But I mean, any box set is going to be time consuming, because the thing I don't think people think about is like each one of those is, you have to consider like parts per minute. So like taking the box, opening the box, putting each thing in the box, closing the box, like
exactly.
all of those movements cost money and
making sure
time.
that everything is in the box. Like you have to have like a checklist, because you're like, it's like assembly, or it's like an assembly line where it's like this person does the CDs, and then this person does the DVD portion, and then this person does the laminate, and this person is the poster person.
Exactly.
And they all have to go in the same way.
Right. And like with the lyric sheets, because of the way like they're basically look like scanned notebook.
Okay.
From where he would like write and draw and like come up with them. They're really cool, but they had to go in a certain order. So we had people that had to like collate them, and then someone that put them in the folder, and then so all of those things. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, and if you then you have like things that are damaged. Like you might have a damaged box, or you might have a portion that's like dented or something, and then that person's got to go find a new box and things like that. So
and the packaging, as far as like actually shipping them too, is important. Sometimes
oh baby,
with certain clients and those like Metallica, for example, you might want to create a custom box
outside
to actually
box.
Ship it in. That has like foam and protective stuff that the box fits in, because you don't want all of that work and all of that money that people are spending to get damaged in shipping. So
totally. Well, and so when somebody calls and is talking to you about compiling a box set, is it like, for box sets, please press 7, and then it goes to you, and you're just like, oh God, like when does that enter into the conversation as part of like the initial talking with the band or the label or whatever? Are they like, hey, we want to do a box set, and you're like, great.
Awesome. I mean, most of them just say like, this is like we're working on a box set, and then it's a lot of collaboration on it, because I need to know like what components are going in the box, and then I mock up what that would be like. So I take like a white sample box that we have, I take records that would be the same kind of packaging and weight, Anything else they want to put in it, I'll sort of find something similar and
Right.
I'll put it all into like a white sample box that we have. Or if we don't have anything that fits it right, then I'll take all of the components and I'll send it to our box vendor, who will then create a box around it.
Wow.
So, because you want to, I mean, you want to make sure it fits right, or like
Yeah.
slip cases, same thing.
Right.
Um,
So how
yeah.
like how often, or I guess how much time does it take from like the initial, and like back in the times where we weren't booking like a year and a half out for records or whatever, like regular conversation production times in the times before the times, how long would it take that like design conversation for you before you would like have records going to press?
It depends how much they know what they want.
Got it.
But I mean, I would say if I have a pretty good idea of everything that's going in it, we can get that white sample made fairly quickly.
That's
But
cool.
but I would then want to send that white sample to the client and make
Right.
sure that they like the way it fits. If we're going to put like bubble wrap inside the box, because
Yeah.
sometimes we do
You
that,
do. Mhm.
and just
Don't
make
want
sure
things
they like the way
jingling
it
around.
fits. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope.
Don't do it.
But yeah, I mean, you know, and then the box needs a certain kind of wrap. So a lot of the things we talked about for jackets, you can do the same kind of stuff for the box wrap. So you could have it like matte, you could have it UV. So all of those options are available there too.
Just reminds me of the Emperor's New Groove, where like turn him into a flea and put him in a box, put that box in another box, and then I'm going to ship it to myself. And then when I get it, I'm going to smash it with a hammer. Like that's in the Yzma voice that I would treat you to, but I'm not going to. Eartha Kitt forever. There's a box set that you guys are making that I'm anxiously anticipating, as I'm sure a lot of DC hardcore fan people are.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not anti-box set by any stretch of the imagination. But
No. Yeah, and I mean, if you love an artist, it's great. I mean,
you mentioned quickly hype stickers. What's a hype sticker?
well,
I mean, like I'm obviously the Women in Vinyl hype man.
for sure.
But
You should write everybody's hype stickers.
yes.
Yeah, so it basically just explains what is on the record. Some stickers are just very simple, like 180 gram color vinyl, whereas
Right.
a hype sticker is more like if you like so and so, you might like this, or if or like Rolling Stone says X, Y, and Z
Right.
about
Got
this
it.
record. There is a label called El Paraiso, and they have some amazing hype stickers. I'll have to find one that we can add to show notes, but
Awesome.
it was like there was one that was like, if like Bart Simpson did this and you like this, then I mean it was great. I took a picture of it and I always send it when people are like, what do I put on my sticker? I'm like, here you go.
This and nothing
Fun
but
things. Yeah.
I mean, I always say that there's that one job that I would really, really love, and that's like naming nail polish or or lipstick colors. But I feel like writing hype stickers for labels would be my equivalent of like naming cosmetics, because I'm sassy. I could do that pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a great job. I think, yeah, and I think placement of hype stickers is important.
Right.
The point is that if someone's flipping through a record bin at a record store, they can see it.
Buy me right now.
Not sure what I am? Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But so yeah, when you see them go like bottom left corner, bottom right corner, you're like, no one's going to see this.
That's not hype, bro.
Yeah.
No one cares. Go on the left side, like make it, throw the audience a curveball. Don't put it at the bottom. That's dumb. Or on the back.
Right.
No, in the middle. What? No, it's not how it works.
Also, a really great place to put your barcode. I would just like to shout that from the rooftops, because a lot of people want to or they need to have different barcodes for different variants.
Yep.
And so if you print it on your jacket, which is fine for your standard variant or whatever, You don't want to print 500 jackets for color A, 500 for color B to change out barcodes. So why not just change it
Put
out
it
on
on
the
a
sticker?
Yeah. So assembly, yeah.
Yeah.
In factory scenarios, there is an entire department.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes the packaging department is the gateway drug to working at a factory and working in a pressing plant.
For sure.
It seems like a lot of the pressing people that we've talked to, their journeys all began in packaging and assembly.
Yeah, it's a great way to learn all the parts, what everything is, how it all works. It's so important. I mean, if you don't understand records, then any other thing that you do, it's harder for you to do that job. So, I mean, especially in sales, like I think if you don't either own records, collect records, or have worked in like an assembly scenario, it's so hard to be able to give the kinds of suggestions that I've talked about without having seen those kinds of things and understand them.
Yeah. Just even down to the sleeve jacket conversation. Like, I don't know how many times I've had to waste an extra email or two explaining just that nomenclature, you know,
Right.
and they're just like, oh yeah, we want to get sleeves. And I'm like, well, I won't ship records without sleeves. So they're
Right.
included in the price. And like there was actually somebody that I did a quote for not long ago that were like, we don't want sleeves. And I was like, that's irresponsible.
I can't ship these to you on a spindle.
Like, I was just like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to cut your records for like 50 hours and then ship them to you naked. Like, that is a bridge too far, ma'am. Like,
right.
Maybe you're doing like a noise project and you don't really care about like scratches. That's fine, but I still won't do it.
No.
But I think, like, going back, I think they meant jackets. And I had like written that in the email too, where I was just like, do you mean printed jackets though? Like, that's fine. But like, I won't ship them without sleeves because that's silly.
Yeah.
So, but just like that common understanding of parts helps facilitate these conversations and like expectations too.
Right.
Totally. But yeah, I mean, they're quick. Holy man, those departments run like nothing you've ever seen before. Those humans are so dexterous.
It's true.
Fingers flying. Just, I mean, generally, I've seen, like, you know, they have, you know, music cranked and everybody's like having a pretty good time. Like, the packaging department's like a pretty fun scenario.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's like that awful. It's just like kind of the same task, but like you can move from putting inserts in. I mean, and there's somebody that visually inspects every single record when they go into a sleeve, and then the sleeve goes in, you know, like we've talked about. But, you know, so there's like a QA department, and then there's like a secondary QA where they're looking for, you know, any defects, etc. in packaging again. So
right.
Eyeballs on records is always good. How do you feel about shrink wrapped records? I personally hate it because I'm always worried about damaging my jacket when I buy a record. And I'm like, oh, shrink wrap. Gross.
I think retail ready is, you know, it's just, it is what it is. Because I think people don't want to get, I mean, I'm always going to take the shrink off and put it in a poly bag at home.
Yeah.
So but I think for retail, a lot of people feel like if they put it in an open top poly bag to start, it's going to feel like it's not new, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the ones I hate are the sealed with perforation. I hate those.
Oh, see, those ones are like the medium for me, where I'm like, oh, okay, good. I can actually separate this with my own digits. Like, because I mean, we've all been there with a cardboard paper cut, and mother,
yeah,
those are the worst. Those are, and I'm sure, you know, I feel
you have to do the thing with the shrink where you like rub it on your clothes or belt or whatever, and then
now I feel like I get poly bags for everybody, the resealable poly bags, because of my fright of shrink wrap machine, but also I don't have a shrink wrap machine, so it's like not a thing that I can do. I don't want to go anywhere near a record that I made with a heat gun. So like, let's just talk about that too.
But I didn't even think of the resealable ones. We just don't use those because they're a pain. Like it takes more time.
It does
for assembly. So,
but I feel like they're more like economic, or maybe not economical, but like environmental choice, because you're going to find, collectors are going to use a poly bag anyway of some variety. So I'm like, I'll just put it in a poly bag for you. Here
Yeah, no, that's true. I didn't think about those. The ones I'm talking about are the ones that like you rip the top off.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't like those only because like once you've ripped that seal off, it's so loose.
Clumsy.
That, it just doesn't stay on the record well.
Yeah.
In theory, I think it's a good idea. If we could get them to fit better, I think that would be
I wonder if it's just like a measurement thing. Maybe they need to be like 12.5 or 12
just like a little smaller, so that once you take the top off, it sits better, because otherwise it just gets all gross in the shelf.
The ones that I don't like, the poly bags that I don't like, are the ones that like get really discolored.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh. I don't like that. And just, I'm like, why are you so it's like the bag that you put your mattress in when you're moving.
Yeah.
It's like that thickness of plastic, and I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like that at all. But there's multiple, and that's the other thing. Like, record collecting gets so oppressive sometimes because there's so many different like thicknesses and measurements and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, put the fucking record on. Put it back on the sleeve. Just listen to the record. It's fine. But I'm working with a label right now, and they're like, we're going to do a one-sided clear record. They're going to silk screen the back. We're going to do a rice paper bag, like a rice paper sleeve. And then we're going to do like a poly bag that's like a thicker mill, so that, because they're not going to do a jacket or anything.
Right. Yeah.
So essentially the poly bag is going to act like the jacket. So, I mean, when I started to go down the poly bag wormhole, it's like 3 mil, 4 mil, 4.5 mil, 6 mil, 8 mil. And then there's like a plastic shell almost.
Yeah. Like they use for the picture discs.
Yeah. And then there's one above that that's like a hard, it's almost like a box that, like the plastic that you would get an action figure in.
Oh, okay.
It's like that kind of mill. It's like a molded plastic. So, and I was just like, okay, well, here's your 12 options.
Right.
And then I'm like, what do you want? And they're like, oh, we think this one. And I'm like, okay. Like, I hope that's the one that, because I'm not sending them samples out, because I just like don't have that kind of inventory where I'm just like, I don't have 7 different varieties of poly bags. So.
Right.
But it was a good learning opportunity to like figure out what there were. But there's so many different kinds of bags even.
Right. Well, Amanda Schutzman, she has all her singles in different colored ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So rad.
Yeah. The organization of that makes me very happy.
Yeah. It's visually pleasing. I also enjoy the way that she's used colored tape on her calyx to like designate this is this. And I'm like, yeah, all right. She would lose her mind. Amanda, we love you, but you would lose your mind if you ever came to my house and looked at my record collection. It is not organized at all. Like, not.
So I would lose my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you would. I mean, it's not. There's no organization at all. It's not alphabetical. It's not genre. It's nothing. It's just there's some here and there's some over here. There's I have 2 boxes of like 7-inch singles and 45s and stuff. And there's no organization there either. Yeah, it's just, I'm looking at it right now. And to me, it's a thing of beauty because I'm so chaotic that I'm just like, this makes sense. And anybody else would just be like,
how do you find anything?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of it. I'm like, spin the wheel, figure out what record you want to listen to. So nothing ever goes back in the same place twice.
Oh my God.
And then half of my collection is still across the country. So, I mean, there's that too. But
that's true.
But I have a whole stack of test pressings to listen to as well. And they're just like on a speaker. Just hanging out. I love Discogs, but it makes me look a lot more organized than I am.
Well, to wrap it up,
Yeah.
is there anything that you would say that someone submitting art, designing art, thinking about packaging, they should keep in mind?
Well, the one thing I think that is common in my world is that people are wanting to change their previously released music as a CD into a record, which I'm super happy to do.
Mm-hmm.
But art that is designed for a CD is not the same as art that's designed for an LP.
Yes.
So there's like size differences, and you I learned this vicariously, but you can't just like stretch it to fit the template. That's not the same thing.
No.
There's a thing called pixelation and like saturation.
Unless you want it to look real lo-fi.
Exactly. And resolution. And those things are very, very problematic in my world. I mean, art is always the one thing that, I mean, makes the package and like makes the release what it is for sure. But it's the one thing that is always problematic and takes so much time. So like file formats, resolution, and like understanding the medium that you're using. Mm-hmm. So what it like, and knowing the terms is always going to save time and thereby save money for sure. Because like if you're resubmitting art, there's always going to be a fee that's associated with that because a person has had to pre-flight it and look at it and spend time doing that just to find out that you didn't meet the minimum resolution that you were asked to provide. Yes. So, I mean, that's a one thing that is like always kind of a sticking point with me is like, you know, and also like when people have a release on Spotify and so they have one image from Spotify and then they just send that to me as like their jacket cover. And I'm like, I still can't do anything with this. Love you, mean it, but yeah, it's still, you know, so it's just kind of like understanding the limitations and like the medium again, like understanding what you want to do with it and not assuming that everybody speaks graphic design that is offering to help you create this magical product. What about you, Jen? Like, is there certain things that you're just like, when you get contacted and you guys are like, hey, we're going to do this wicked release. And you're like, sweet, here's a 411 sheet on how not to make me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, make sure it's in the template. Mm-hmm. So wherever you're pressing, look for their templates, ask for their templates up front. 'Cause like Robin said, someone has to do the pre-press on that. Someone's going to look at that with you and make sure it's set up correctly. And on those templates, it will show you where your bleed lines are. And that's where it's going to get cut. So that's the safety margin. It's so important. So like if you have something on a label and it's running out of the bleed line, you may not have that in the end when it's done. So paying attention to that stuff, I think if you have a graphic designer, great. If you're learning for yourself and you have a font that you've used in something like an Adobe Illustrator program, expand your font. It's so important to do that. It's a button that you press or like you just go font expand. Basically what that means is you have turned your font into an object so that whoever receives it actually gets the font that you want. Because otherwise there's a lot of back and forth sometimes, like getting the font, making sure it's expanded. It's always been something that it always happens.
It was a time consuming part.
It takes 2 seconds. Like you just have to remember to do it.
Right.
Like we talked about a couple things, no RGB. That's like for TVs and computers. It won't translate the way you think it will in print. And then to Robin's point, the scanning of images, like there are places still where you can scan things high res, so do it.
Please.
Yes.
Please do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure this is the same with you guys, but 300 DPI is like kind of the minimum, right?
Yeah,
That
for sure.
is kind of, so that's maybe a hot tip from today's episode, is that, yeah, like resolution is important. 300 DPI will give you nice print,
Yes.
unless you don't want nice print and you want something that's, maybe that's a choice. There's also, artistic choices and things like that. That's totally, you're right. But we're trying to help you. So
yeah. And this goes for anything that you're printing. So yeah.
I learned that by printing labels in-house. I'm like, why does this look like this? Oh, I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not going out of the studio. But yeah, I mean, as always, like if anybody has questions about packaging, reach out. Thanks for joining us on episode 15. Thanks again for joining us on episode 15 of the Women in Vinyl podcast, where today we talk about packaging, sleeves, inserts, hype stickers, all the things. Do you remember what OB is in Japanese? Because there'll be a test later. Thank you to Normandie Records and Nicolette Smith for the use of her song, Beasts Bigger Than Me. Thank you to our 2 podcast sponsors. We want to send a huge thank you out to other record labels. They've gifted us and our listeners, that's you, a 50% off code, WIV50, in their store for the myriad of resources that Scott has compiled there if you want to start your own record label, or if you just want to get better at operating your band. There's lots of good things there. How to budget, how to market. There's a marketing plan. There's writing a business plan. There's all kinds of things. And we also want to send a huge thank you out to our newest sponsor, Selector. Check out their Instagram at selector.co. That's SELEKTOR.co. The Women in Vinyl store is live too. Check it out at womeninvinyl.com/store. And as always, join the conversation on Instagram or send us a note at media@womeninvinyl.com. If we got anything wrong, or you want to see an example of some crazy packaging or one of these wicked awesome box sets that Jen's talking about. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a review on your new favorite podcast delivery method. 5 stars if you please, or just recommend us to your other friend that needs to know more about vinyl. You can also contribute to furthering our mission at www.patreon.com/womeninvinyl, where you'll find all of the B-sides, the deep cuts, and the amazing extras, and help us to start a not-for-profit to further the demystification, the education, and the infiltration of more women and non-binary identifying humans into the vinyl making space. Happy spooky season, everyone.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl and Red Spade Records. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.